welcome everyone to our Global Innovation Readiness webinar series. And today's session will be focusing on facilitating strategic co-creation, featuring our guest speaker, Kurt Ward, Senior Global Design Director at Philips, and my colleagues and collaborators at Global Minds Network, Lokesh, Venkataswamy, an International Innovation Design Leader, and Kaimeng, Huang, International Strategy and Design Leader. So we're in for a treat. It's a full session and with lots of inspiration around global design and co-creation. And so with this series, why Global Innovation Readiness? Because we thought it's about time to look at how can we innovate and collaborate in this changing world, especially one that's international, highly international, multicultural, and digitally connected. And moving forward, we'd like to offer this series to look at which ways can we really improve innovation and collaboration from concept to market. And so we'll be doing that in a series of sessions every Thursday. We started May 21st. We'll be going until June 25th. You can meet us here every Thursday, starting at 8:30 in the morning in San Francisco, around 11:30 on the East Coast, New York City, and then 4:30 in London, 5:30 here in Paris, and 21 hours, 9 p.m. in Bangalore, and very late in Beijing at 11:30. So we're looking forward to seeing you here. And then for this session, before we get started, 5 tips for the readiness journey. Just make sure you check out the Zoom webinar tool. It's a little different than Zoom meetings. So you just have 2 features, the Q&A, where we look forward to your questions, and then the chat. If you any comments, thoughts, feedback during or after the session or the presentations. And to make sure you're all connected, please say hello, share a greeting in your local language, tell us where you're calling in from. I'll say bonjour from rainy and gray Paris, and let's see where you're calling in from. Oh. Let me see the chat. Oh, we have a lot of Parisians. Bonjour from Paris, from Genève, the Swiss, San Francisco, yes, my hometown. Let's see. Oh, quite a few from France, La France. And India. So a little from everywhere, Asia, Europe, and North America, US. Great. Hello, everybody. Good to see you online. Okay, so as I mentioned for this session, you will be muted during the presentation session, but feel free to interact with the Q&A and chat. And then after the 3rd presentation, we'll open it up. So you'll see us live, and then we'll have, I look forward to an exchange with you. And then before we get started, just a quick intro, since we've had a chance to meet you very quickly. A quick intro to Global Minds Network, where our vision is to inspire global minds to collaborate and innovate in order to transform the world. A world that's, as mentioned, is really global, multicultural, and digitally connected. So we'd like to look at how can we accelerate innovation and multicultural collaboration for improved performance and market success around the world. And we do so through our team. We're an international advisory network of innovators, change makers, and international leaders who bring experience, extensive experience at the intersections of innovation, multicultural collaboration, and digital transformation, as well as leadership. And we embrace the framework. We really collaborate around this framework that has been based on a decade of research, the Global Innovation Readiness Framework, looking at this continuous cycle of innovating around the world and the 3 drivers of vision, dialogue, and space. So looking at that global vision that is shared by everyone through inclusive leadership and strategic co-creation, which we'll be looking at today. And that is shaped by the dialogue. So how to nurture knowledge sharing and cross-cultural learning with virtual teams as well as live teams. And that in turn shapes the space and how you create a global innovation culture and a creative team climate. we are now ready for our session on strategic co-creation and taking a closer look at how can we ensure inclusive design methodologies and ensure strategic co-creation that ensures everybody thrives around the world. And so we'll be looking at the local views from India and China, and finally the global view from Kurt Ward Phillips. So I'd like to introduce my dear colleague and collaborator, Lokesh Venkataswamy, who is bringing more insights to international innovation design here at Global Minds Network. He's the CEO and Managing Director of Mantra Consulting in India, and he'll be talking about amplifying innovation through collaboration. So welcome, Lokesh.
Okay, thank you, Karina. Wonderful to see you.
It's great to see you too.
Okay. Good evening from India. This is Lokesh, and I'm really excited to share a few thoughts on how exactly, the co-creation can really make a huge impact in your business in the future. So this is one of my favorite quote by Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, and working together is success. He is a great observer because he captured the idea of assembly line from a slaughterhouse, and he transformed by collaborating, bringing all the partners together. Yeah. So going to the next slide, this is a kind of one of the a favorite slide. Actually, this is from Crazy Times Call for Crazy Organization. How people are moving away from less material to more intellect. On the y-axis you have a value, and then the time. If you really look at, we have moved from an agriculture age to industrial age, and industrial age to information age. In information age, India made a huge impact. A lot of IT companies were really formed in India, and now the age of passion for innovation, how these companies are really looking at to be innovative, moving away from being a coding factory. Go to the next. I just mapped the next slide. I just mapped the next slide with an Indian IT industry perspective. So from less material, we moved to the more intellect, and then from more intellect, now we are going for wow ideas. That means, can you really bring one great idea which can transform my organization? It so happened, it started with a body shopping, and it moved towards the on-site, wherein the people were moved from India to the West, and then the companies were formed. Later they realized actually how we can really take those jobs to India back and then try to reduce the cost. And then n number of IT companies were formed in India, and that really transformed the whole industry itself. Initially they came for the cost, and then they looked at the quality of the delivery. That is really the hook where India could able to make an impact. At the same time, the time zone from India, which could able to really bring a huge impact, because there was a kind of a scenario where the 24 hours the R&D was working from both sides. So that moved into the scaling also. So this part of the the business was all about coding factory, the people are just coding from India. The future trend, actually, what I see is the kind of an opportunity of innovation factory. The people look at how we can really develop IPs from this part of the world, how we can really create value for their products and services. At the same time, these customers who are giving jobs to India, now they're asking these customers how you can really invest back to improve my product and services. So this is the kind of collaborativeness they are looking at today. At the same time, the kind of skill set you had in the initially, now what kind of skill set you require is totally different. Today, you look at how we can be a growth mindset. That means how we can be explorative in nature, how we can really work with a multicultural, how we can work with collaborative aspects. So you need all the new skills to really make this successful. Go to the next slide. So we are seeing in our consulting engagement, this is the question we've been asking, where do you think that organizations are innovating actually? So We have been asking this question, and then we are constantly getting the same answers from the customers. So go to the next slide. One is actually responding to the changing conditions. How fast I can respond to the changing conditions. So when you look at now the e-cars and then the EVs are really is making a big impact in the market across the globe. People always think it takes longer time to really transform. Even this particular slide, you can see on the left, actually it is in the 1900. You can see the New York City, wherein you can see a lot of horse carts. The biggest challenge at that point of time was the menus it was generating, because it was difficult to manage at that point of time. They wanted to quickly move out of that. In 10 years later, actually you can see the same street on the Easter Sunday morning, you had it completely transformed. Today, you don't need so many years to really transform. With the COVID, we have seen the way we are working has transformed overnight. So same thing will happen, but at the same time, what these large companies are doing to really transform the younger, smaller companies, you have a lot of opportunity to really upgrade them, take them to the next level. So this is from the Gartner, actually, the top 20 trends, actually, the top 10 trends, actually, in 2020, it talks about two aspects, actually. One is on the smart side, and then one is on the people-centric. On the people-centric side, if you really look at hyper-automation, this is something beyond traditional automation. How to bring AI, and then how to bring ML, and then integrate into the automation. To bring a high-impact automation, even multi-experience, people are looking at another. Democratization of the technology. How to reach the common man. How to reach the masses. Here, the user experience will make a great impact. So I'm very sure that the next presentation actually by Kaimeng, actually she'll talk about the design, how it's really transforming in China. The user experience is making a big impact. The human augmentation, that is also it's making a big impact in the industry as such. So the second question is generating new revenues. Right, so people are looking at how I can really move out or look at the new opportunities from the existing business. This has become a big challenge for most of the companies. So the opportunity lies, and show you a small, next slide, please. So this is a patent, actually, which is filed in 1993. Which is basically a toy wherein you can use your finger and then make it to rotate so that it will improve the kids' concentration, as well as the people with autism, you can use this toy. So if you and they got the patent in 1997. In 2017, go to the next slide. A new toy was released to the market. I'm very sure that this toy you're very familiar. And this toy is kind of a collectible. Each kid will have at least 10 to 15 in their collection box. It has got 4 bearings. But innovation didn't come from none of the bearing companies. But this is a big market, $500 million company. The market is big, but none of the the bearing companies could see this opportunity. Even today, 70% of the toys sold in the market, actually, the daily sales is from particular fidget spinner. So what I mean to say is, you have a huge opportunity outside your industry. You need to have a different kind of partners to get these insights. So it's very important to organization to look at the new partner from a new industry all the time. Can I go to the next? So this is a lane from the Chandni Chowk. It's a very famous location in Delhi. These Indian marketplaces are very, very narrow. And this actually has turned into opportunity for Tata. because these narrow marketplace, actually, you cannot take trucks inside this marketplace. You need to have the smaller, like the pickup trucks, right? Can you go to the next? Please go to the next. Yeah. So this is the mini pickup trucks actually, which came out in 2005. The axle manufacturer could not see the opportunity of this mini trucks coming, even though the manufacturer had a lot of knowledge about the axle, but he could not see the new opportunity which is emerging in the new segment altogether. When these companies were looking for partners, actually they went to the many large companies who are making axles, and then this company said outrightly no, because it's not my segment. But today they really feel bad because there are already 2 million axles, like 2 million trucks were already manufactured in this segment, and then they have 15 plus variants. And this has really transformed into a new segment, actually, which created a huge impact in the market. Go to the next. This is basically looking at the adjacent space, how we can really create new opportunity. This has happened in many industries also, like Kuka Roberts, which came to industry in terms of the glass industry, how it can really pick and place. But it made a huge impact in the entertainment industry. But to really enter there, you need to have a new kind of the insights from the industry, and you need a new partners, because in entertainment industry, the front end makes huge impact. The UI and UX is becoming a huge impact because these companies were never worked with those kind of companies in the past. So you need to have a new skill coming from the different industry altogether to make the next success. Go to the next. Yep. So the next question is creating the high impact operational efficiency. People are looking at how I can really improve my process, how I can really improve my efficiency. So there have been many initiatives in the organization, like Six Sigma, value engineering. So many aspects have been implemented in the organization, but it has not yielded the great impact of the great change in the organization. Now people are looking at how it can really transform in a disruptive manner. This is what companies are looking at. So go to the next. So I'm very sure we always get amazed by the kind of work that SpaceX is doing in even the last week launch was really exciting to see. That is also purely a collaboration between NASA and then the SpaceX. The NASA could able to see a lot of value in the SpaceX to joining hands together. Here we are looking at how to really the move from Hong Kong to Singapore in 22 minutes, London to New York in 29 minutes, Delhi to Tokyo in 30 minutes, Los Angeles to Toronto in 24 minutes. Here, the learning here is how we can really bring these kind of insights within our organization. Possibly I may be taking 15 days to send a proposal. Can I really bring down to 1 day? How to make it happen? This is what the transformation companies are looking at today. How I can really improve my front end so that I can have a great pipeline in the back end. So the fourth part is the creating new customer experiences. This is really going to be a differentiator for any organization in the future. If you make this part very strong, you will make an amazing company in the future, and you're going to be a leader in the market. That is for sure. Go to the next. This is an example from the Indian cricket, actually IPL. IPL is a game changer for cricket. How it really transformed a 5-day match into 1 day to just a 3-hour match. I got a ticket for this particular IPL, and I got a premium ticket, and then I found that the premium ticket is all about there are cheerleaders in front of you. This is a great transformation. At the same time, the excitement and vibrancy in the stadium is highest when you really sit around with cheerleaders. So, and at the same time, it gave a new experience of cricket in this country. And people who are never used to watch cricket have become a cricket lovers after this IPL. So it really transformed in all aspects of cricketing. So it created a new experience for everyone. It is not only just sports, it's also an entertainment and excitement coming together. This customer never asked for it, but the collaboration and strategic co-creation created every aspect of gaming experience different. Please go to the next. So coming to the the innovation hub, there may be the organization may be having several strategic co-creation being in place, but now we started with accelerating the product development. We are looking at the co-development and co-licensing, how to really enhance the incubation and accelerators in the organization. IP generation and management also has become a critical aspect. So people are using several partners to really enhance the innovation culture in the organization. But now it's becoming more and more complex with the current trend. Please go to the next. So as it really expanded, I think you cannot have all the skills within the organization. Now the opportunity is basically how to really bring the best expert to play for your orchestra. That is the thing you need to really look at. For example, the innovation tools and the innovation tools, you need to bring some new skills like new language for innovation within the organization, like design thinking, creative problem solving, how you can bring a morphological analysis skills within the organization, how to bring a collaborative innovation platform, not only looking at within your own organization, how to look at your partners, vendors, as well as the open innovation, how to bring outsiders to get involved in your innovation process. At the same time, you also need to really look at domain expertise and reskilling your own people. That is very important to to amplify your strategic goals. If you take up one single piece, from the innovation hub, the digital transformation. Now, digital transformation as well as the digital leadership as well as the innovation leadership is merging very closely. You need to look at what is the clear definition for digital transformation for your organization. Identify the key technologies for each department. Create a new definition for each and every department, and see how we can really bring partners to enhance the capability of the organization in terms of a digital transformation. You also need to look at how to embrace the new technology, how to empower your people, at the same time, how to emerge as a leader with the digital. It's not only just moving away from paper and pencil into digital. You need a new vision for the organization to grow. Go to the next. So coming to the next slide. So this is one of the most important document generally, we use for co-creation. The first thing is we need to understand what your partner brings in and then what you bring in actually. So immuring is basically what individually this particular company, the partner is going to get in on the table. At the same time, you also need to look at the networking, how you can use the networking of both the organization and then use for their betterment actually. At the same time, you also need to look at the coordination aspect actually, how I can really bring a common purpose by collaborating together. At the same time, you also look at how we can really co-create in terms of cooperating, bringing the both of the resources and utilizing both the resources. At the same time, the collaboration part is very, very important. That means bringing the expertise from both the sides, that bringing that expertise should enhance the capability of the current scenario of the organization for both the teams. Then this collaboration is going to be successful. At the same time, integrating the non-core activities, possibly maybe accounting or some other activities which doesn't really bring the core value to the organization, possibly it can be integrated with the partners so that it can reduce your overheads. Please go to the next. It's taking some time. So in the conclusion, like, what I want to bring you is basically, if to make the strategic co-creation a success, it's very important to share knowledge and then build a competency. At the same time, you also need to understand the user needs effectively so that you can identify the right partner for the right reason. At the same time, look at every partner and vendor as your partners, okay? So that you can try to amplify your product development or even the processes so that you can be in the next era of the competition. At the same time, the very important aspect is the policy changes which is required as a first at the first level. The policy need not to be watertight. It should be more flexible because you're going to create partners. You're going to build trust because the trust is more important first. Then you can look at the documents very, very deeply. Because if you make it watertight, no one will be willing to really share and then work with you. At the same time, keep the hygiene of the intellectual property in place. It's very important because people should know what they're going to bring on the table, how they're going to use, and how they're going to share in case of success. So by doing that, you will enable many people to really join with you and then move with you. So what I wanted to share is, like, as an end point, actually, like, the collaborating is all about bliss. Actually, my collaboration with even in the Global Mind Network has given a lot more new insights to discuss. We brought new thoughts in terms of the discussion. At the same time, we could able to also create new value for both the organizations together. So it's a very important organization to really look at the collaboration as a key aspect for the growth. The key aspect for the growth next is innovation and collaboration. If you're able to really put policies and agreements in place, and I'm very sure that your strategic co-creation is going to be a success. It is going to bring a new results for the organization. Thank you, and over to Karina.
Thank you, Lokesh. And I'm quickly going to introduce our next speaker because we still have two more. We want to make sure we have time. So we're going to have a brief look at the design powers, how design powers entrepreneurship and innovation in China and beyond and the world. And I'd like to introduce my colleague Kaimeng Huang, International Strategy and Design Leader here at Global Minds Network, as well as founder and CEO of Acusea Capital in California and Huang Capital in Beijing. So welcome, Kaimeng.
Thanks, Karina. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, hear you loud and clear.
Great. Yes, it's great to be here. And my topic today is how design powers innovation and entrepreneurship. And since I'm currently running a small venture fund focused on helping designers to build successful startups in China, I will talk about the China experience. This slide is pretty meaningful to me personally. Since we and my team and me and my partner started to work on the Beijing Design Week as an offline and online channel for young designers to come together and innovate 10 years ago, we have seen phenomenal growth. The visitor for this Beijing Design Week platform has increased about 20 times from the year it started, 2009, to last year, 8.5 million total visitors. Next slide. And so in China, we have really believed design and designer co-founded companies are becoming a major force in innovation. The three very big named companies in the designer co-founded Chinese company space with a market cap combined together $300 billion US, probably some of you already know, is Alibaba, Visual China, and Xiaomi. And the common thing about all three companies is there are more than one designers in the founding team. Two of the 18 co-founders in Alibaba, for example, are designers. And 2 of the 8 founders at Xiaomi are also designers, and we know, and we worked with all of them before. And Alibaba, of course, has a design ecosystem that has about 1.2 million designers on its Luban design platform. And for Xiaomi, of course, many of you know, it's an ecosystem of both hardware and software products. And it has incubated about 120 startups since its founding. And 4 of the companies it incubated has become unicorns. And we have seen a very, very clear designer co-founded and venture-backed startups emerging in China, especially in the last 3 years. And some of these companies we have worked very closely with. One of them is Meitu, Xiu, that actually started when I was still working for Adobe in my previous job. And Meitu has become the most successful photo app in China. It's similar to the Photoshop mobile version, but it's much more successful than Photoshop mobile in China. And another company, for example, is Ziku. And it's like China's Shutterfly. For some of you know Shutterfly. It's a design community and imagery resource sharing company. That's their solution. And we have worked very closely with Ziku since 5 years ago. Starting when I was still with Adobe. And another company is T-Zine, and not Design, but T-Zine. Is a platform-based design and creative talent solution. Actually, the founder built an enterprise SaaS connecting the big corporations with the small and medium-sized design firms, as well as freelance designers. It's very, very successful, and they have raised Series B just in the last round, and we're participating in that round already. And so this slide is are the logos, you know, of all these international and also Chinese startups that are so successful, and the reason for their success is partially attributed to the value of design or the design background in their founding team. And we believe, you know, this is going to continue become a very strong kind of impact. Next slide, please. Taking time, I guess. Yeah, this is one example of the company that we worked with called Naked Hub. Its CEO is an interior designer, and he brought the whole concept of interior design into this co-working space startup, and they were able to appeal to young people, and just within a very short time, 2.5 years, they become so successful they got acquired by WeWork for 2.5 billion Chinese RMB. Next. Sorry, the next slide. It's not. Okay, so why don't I just talk about the next slide is actually smart manufacturing company. The CEO, Mr. Chen Xingbo, is an industrial designer by background, and he actually joined the company starting to build product from an entirely different methodology, which is starting from the user experience and the user feedback as the most important criteria for decision making. That changed the company, turned it around because it was close to bankruptcy. With this new disruptive projector killer product, he was able to save the company. And this is, you know, what he keeps telling the story, because of his background in design, he was able to make design the #1 priority, the user experience as the #1 criteria. Next slide, please. And it's another company called Xanadu. It's a high-end online travel company. Also, the founding team has an important member who's from a design background, and he's a German living in China. His name is Dirk Eschenbacher, and he was previously working at Aome as the brand director. Since he joined the company, he was able to leverage that background in brand building, and also his passion for AR and VR to target the high-end customers with this amazing kind of user experience. And he was able to help Xanadu differentiate the brand very quickly. And now Xanadu has attracted the most, compared to the competitor, the most high-end customers. And per person spending is also the highest in the industry. Next slide, please. And we were able to invest in their last round, the A+ round. Next slide, please. I guess it's taking a while. For some reason on my end, it's pretty slow. Yeah, okay. So this is the slide I want to share with everyone, because this trend already happened in Silicon Valley, probably 2-3 years before China. That, you know, the index started to track the successful companies co-founded by designers. You have McKinsey, you have the Design in Tech by KPCB, tracking these companies, big corporations, as well as small startups that have the design integrated into their founding principle, as well as their product development and strategy, that has shown a clear value of more profitability, more valuation, more rapid growth. And many of these companies we had visited or have worked with from China, and that's why we believe in China we're seeing 2-3 years behind, but we're gradually catching up. And the index in China, we're building that Design in Tech index for China, and we're going to publish that by the end of this year, hopefully. Next slide. Not coming up, hopefully. I believe next slide is about the M&A activities in the US from all these design and venture-backed startups, and and it's very active and dynamic space in terms of M&A by the big name companies such as IBM, Salesforce, Adobe. I actually worked with some of these. Oh, actually, this slide is coming up. Okay, good. It's the venture capital ecosystem in Silicon Valley of these designers working at VC firms that started just a few years ago. They started from some operating roles, but they're now moving to investing roles and also other major decision-making roles. Some of them starting their own venture firms to focus on design. And the key factor is because all these GPs in this space are paying more and more attention to the value of design, and the valuation of design, as shown by some of the tracked indexes, are indeed growing and showing as superior results as compared to those non-design startups. We have worked with some of these venture firms, such as Google Ventures, such as Designer Fund, such as the NEA design partner, the KPCB design partner. John Maeda is our good advisor on our fund as well, and also Scott Belsky, who's having his own fund focusing on design. So in the Silicon Valley, there's a big design venture ecosystem, and we're starting to see some of that in China with existing big name VC firms having design partners, or smaller venture funds like ours focusing on design. So in order to understand how all these facilitating strategic co-creation, as Lokesh talked about, through design methodology and culture, I believe in these spaces, especially with the AI coming up as the major disruptor, and it means new opportunities. That designer has to have all these cross-culture, cross-discipline, cross-functional, and cross life cycle kind of skills and roles that they need to play in these areas that are including the human-centric design, design as a service, versus design driven by technology as before, but design as a service. And then global brand and marketing from the Chinese market point of view, that's definitely very important. And also data driven design, which means designers has to be more analytical. And also AI enabled design, that means designer have to also relearn or learn new things, because previously they maybe just design as a skill, but now they have to understand the AI probably will replace 30% of the design work in the next 20 years. And what should design education mean? What should design as a profession mean? And what should design as their profession means? And that means they have to be able to look at the co-creation and working together to face all these complex cultural problems, big data sets for decision making, for example, new technology, such as the Internet of Things, such as augmented reality, artificial reality, virtual reality, robotics, new materials, sensors, ethics, all these cultural trends, and sustainability for the environment, and also manufacture, less things, but enhance the design process and research. And I think all these are issues that the Chinese designers and innovators are facing, and they will look at these as big opportunities to innovate. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kaimeng. It's great insights from both Lokesh and Kaimeng. And I would like to move quickly because we have our guest speaker, and I'm very excited to welcome Kurt Ward, the Senior Design Director, Philips Design, who I have the pleasure of meeting for a collaboration on my book, Leading Global Innovation, on one of the case studies on leadership and strategic co-creation. I was so impressed by Kurt's work at Philips and how they're able to create these global design methodologies and training with leaders to ensure that it's an inclusive design and collaboration around the world. So I'd like to present Kurt, who's really helped shape and pioneer these practices, and so we can enjoy insights from his perspective. And hopefully we'll have a little time at the end because I know there are many who would like to, I'm going to switch over quickly to Kurt's deck. And
hello. Hi. I promise I tested it out yesterday. I did 13 minutes, but I think I'll do it in 10. So I'm very honored to be on this program, but I'd like to give you a rather high level, softer view of design and co-creation, specifically how we at Philips Design have transformed over the last, say, 10 years, and give you some insight about that. Just as a point of expectations, I'm not going to introduce any new theories and practices here. You're going to know most of these. I mean, they're pretty common, but maybe it might be interesting to see in the context. Now, I'm going to use a lot of healthcare examples only because that's where I'm very active in. But what I'm talking about here is relevant for any other industry. It could be agriculture, nutrition, urban environments as well. Now, there has been a major transition, I would say, what I've seen from designers as a function. Going back 10 years past, it was very much a designer-centric culture that we had. In other words, you would give a brief and insights to a designer, they would take that, they would craft it, they would articulate it, and they would come out with some deliverable. Now that is still in practice, and I'm not saying that's going away, but because the world is much more complex, we're starting to realize that the real value, or like larger value of design, is to be able to facilitate the entire ecosystem to transform. I can use the COVID example, which is really relevant for you. Everybody knows about the issue around the ventilators, the supply chain, the logistics, the distribution network, and how integrated and necessary they were to work together. But also you can look at it from the healthcare point of view. the first time multiple healthcare systems were required to operate within each other. There was a major division between what type of work could be done and what type could not be done. And also the dependency on the community and the social and, frankly, the political environment. So it was a really good example of how we need to think about ecosystems and holistic thinking. So on the next slide, what I'd like to tell you about is that we've moved from this idea of the one individual to the many. And my only example on that is that I gave a presentation to a very large and very progressive Northern European city. And it was the city management. So you had the Minister of Health and Social Services, you had the Minister of Waste and Infrastructure, you had the Minister of Energy. All these ministers were sitting together. And I told a similar story about this idea of having to work with a integrated ecosystem. And they realized and they recognized the fact that they as a group, even though they're the management team of a city, had actually never sat together and looked at how they're independent from each other and how they could operate with each other. So in the next slide, what I'd like to share with you is the transition that design is kind of needed to emphasize on. Now, you'll all recognize these words around empathy and future shaping and testing, but in this new context, it requires design or innovation to even enhance them much further. You used to think about empathy from the point of view of, I'm going to go get user insights. I'm going to understand the specific user. But now when you have multiple stakeholders, so for instance, you have doctors, nurses, you have the community practitioners, the rehabs, the patients and their families. To be able to put that together within a team, you need to be able to start to think and extrapolate out to a much larger group. You need to start thinking about not just one patient, but the entire patient population. And you also need to start thinking about the interaction with each other. So our capacity and capability to do empathy thinking has basically grown tremendously. Shaping the future, we used to think of the ideas of, I can envision what this product's going to be like, I can shape it, the materials and the finish. Now we need to start thinking about what is the entire ecosystem about? Because now we're transforming value chains, the value exchange between different parties, the business models, the logistics. And that's a much larger, complex construct that you need to be able to put together in order to feed back to all these stakeholders. And the last, which is an old thought, fail fast and fail cheap, but I like to say learn quickly and evolve. That is just ever more dependent, because there's no way that we can create a system that's going to be evolving, an innovative system. We need to think about it from a 5 to 10 year point of view. And in that 5 to 10 years, we need to be able to adapt and iterate because society changes. And as a result of using that, our goal is we want to come up with new business concepts. Now, in the next slide, I'm going to basically tell you about, these are some of the processes that we go through. Now, I'm going to explain that we not only use this process and this design thinking with our internal organization, so within Philips, across the value chain, across partners, distributors, and across the world, but we also do it with hospital systems. We used to think about, well, we'll design an MR machine, an imaging machine. But then we realized that in order to make that more impactful, we need to design the imaging department. And then we realized in order to make the imaging department more impactful, we had to design the hospital, and then the hospital to the community to the network, and then to the country. So we're thinking about this point of view of, it's not just one innovation that's going to support it. We need to start thinking about supporting the whole ecosystem in innovation. We still need to design fantastic, fabulous imaging machines, no question about it. But to make the real impact means we need to start thinking about ourselves within an ecosystem. So below is just some of the processes that we use. We try to first start out with the fact of, where do we have a shared value? Where do we have a shared vision? If you don't have a shared aspiration with a multidisciplinary team, you're not going to be able to take it very far. You're going to go from a more lateral point of view as opposed to a more vertical point of view than a horizontal thinking. The next thing is you need to really focus. Now, I recognize the fact that we're thinking about transforming the entire healthcare ecosystem of the country, but even within that, you need to start focusing on that areas, because if you try to do too much, too little, you're not going to have enough. And then the crux of this is to be able to synthesize this information in such a way rapidly that all these stakeholders, potentially 20 to 30, who are all different roles, are able to understand and comprehend it. And that's the facilitation's job, the design's job. You need to come up with and model this construct. And we're talking about complex things to construct. What is a future healthcare going to look like? What is a future city going to look like? And I'm going to move quickly to the idea of, unless there is really a shared value in this, and I mean that from the point of view, it's not a commercial exchange. You need to think about all partners being able to drive some value into that future. Otherwise, it's not going to go there. And in the next slide, I can wrap up in my 13-minute show with my 8-minute show. It helps to, doing this process, first of all, you need to create a strategy. If I said to you, I want to meet you all at the beach, you would end up in many different areas on the beach. But if I said to you, I'd like to meet with you at that green flagpole on the beach, you can bet that a lot more of us are going to get there. Maybe not all of us, but some of us are going to get there. And when I say get there, I'm talking about a change in the system from 5 to 10 years. So it helps to get a strategic area so that you can focus in on. More importantly, it needs to be pragmatic. We had many visions in the past which were brilliant about the way we think the future could be. But there were two elements that didn't work in that. The first was you need to get buy-in not only from management, but from investors to be able to say, you know what, that's quite a big step. That's a big risk. So you need to make it in small chunks, small steps to see, you were successful here. I believe you can take it forward there. And also as a pragmatic point of view, we all are probably in our own focus of areas within the next 2 or 3 years. So if you set something out for somebody else to do in the future, it's not going to happen. You have to have a stake in it. And, the next thing is to then really enable and assign and qualify who's going to do what and give responsibilities. And so the following slide is just the picture of, this idea that we are doing this together with multiple systems. On behalf of Philips, we feel it's our, let's say, requirement, our organizational requirement to not only support our own products, but be able to support the ecosystem to develop. And that's a shared value. And that's a shared thing to be, in organizational culture to be responsive. So if I was going to share anything with you, I would say that if you think about co-creating and innovating together, you need to think about it from the shared point of view, which I think has been stated by others. And that was my 10-minute versus 13-minute, I hope was clear. Thank you. You can skip that.
Okay. Thank you so much to Kurt Ward. And I'm going to open it up so that we can have an exchange with the audience. We are, I know we're a little short of time. Hopefully you can stay a few minutes over, but we'll make the most of these questions and make sure that we can give you some feedback. So I have, the first question is, what does design cover in China, or UI designer, UX designer, something else? I think that's for a Kaimeng. Just a quick response. And then,
sorry, what's the question?
In terms of a designer interest in China, is it UX or UI, or just they wanted to clarify very quickly?
Oh, the designer that I was referring to, just as a general term in my PPT, is is not necessarily a UX designer or a UI designer. Okay. It's just a designer by training. Enrolled students, we have 1.5 million students enrolled in design. They could be studying UX design, okay. UI design, or industrial design, graphic design, all these.
Got it. Thank you, Kaimeng. So while we're waiting for your questions, please do take this opportunity. You can type your question into the Q&A box. I see some notes in the chat box. I have a question for Kurt. I'm curious about your view in terms of global design methodology. What do you feel is the most important aspect to ensure it's inclusive, that it engages across cultures? What do you think? Is there a secret aspect of that or formula that is very important?
Well, you know, we talk about a T-shaped designer, which is a designer who has service design mentality, also an understanding of data, of ecosystems, of product design, of communication design. And I think it was mentioned before, but you know, that idea to be able to put yourself into a context, in any context, and see it from many different angles. While at the same time, of course, being able to leverage, you know, deeper experts, you know, very skilled product designers or service designers. But that T-shaped designer, that holistic thinker, that is really where we need to be thinking about more. And you'll see that emerging.
Great. I have another question here. It's what do you see as the future of design in your experience? What's next?
Me?
Yeah, Kurt.
Oh,
the
future of design.
New opportunities.
Well, I could talk about 3 areas, but I'll just choose 2. So one is this idea of the future of design is in regards to sustainability and circular. We have yet to really tap into that whole area. We're going to have to. The environment and the world resources are not there. So we're going to have to start thinking about everything from how we extract materials, how we reuse materials, how we're manufacturing, how we're using, developing, I mean, the whole thing. That's a huge area. And the other thing is a curious thing, because I think we're going to have to start designing things that design themselves in the future. You know, you can imagine, you put out a phone right now as an example, and you've designed it, you know, with a specific interface, and you know, that's it. You get what you get, and now you're going to wait for the next model. Well, frankly, with AI and data and adaptive technology and 3D printing, how do you design a phone that actually you will be able to design it yourself and will adapt yourself, and maybe you get another version in 10 years? It's quite a radical shift.
Good. I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question to Kurt. Like, you know, can you share some 3 tips how a non-designer to think like a designer? Because today, design is not only the design department's job, it's everyone's job. Like, you know, how to really design your own document, design your own function, right? Yeah. So what are the 3 tips actually which can really, like, you know, can be a take home for our audience?
My first one would be, please use design thinking, but don't think you're a designer. Because, you know, to be honest with you, there's lots of bad design out there done by designers. So just because you're a designer doesn't mean you get good quality. On the other hand, we are all naturally creative. Man is a naturally creative being. And actually, we're at our best when we play. I don't know if you know this, but if you look into mythology and if you look into anthropology, there's so much that reflects in the man our ability to play and everything that kicks in with it. So I would say, try to get out of your comfort zone, number one. Try to use the idea of playing and thinking and let's say, distance yourself from the boxed-in silo of expectation. And in that way, you'd be more design thinking than most designers.
Okay, I have one more question for Kurt from the attendees, and then I have one general question for everyone before we conclude. And so to Kurt, how do you see current cultural and economic developments influencing innovation in companies like Philips? That's a big question.
Well, I fortunately, I have to say, Philips is a fantastic place to be. We have consistently put about 10% of our gross sales into innovation and design. 10%. That's radical. So we are not a good example of the industry. But I have seen another thing which is really interesting, which is a lot of larger organizations like consultants and other companies buying up smaller design firms. So I do think culturally design is at a place to do something. I do think we're top of mind. You walk into a bookstore and you see design thinking principles and books on the shelves. Design is everywhere. You heard it from China, the fantastic story she said about the influence of design. So I don't think it's going to get worse. I think it'll only get better. The question is whether or not we take our responsibility as designers seriously, and whether or not we take accountability for the impact as opposed to just accountability for a pretty deliverable.
Great, thank you. I had one question from the audience for Lokesh, and maybe we can use that as a concluding question, because it's quite good, and we can bring it to all of the speakers, but we'll start with Lokesh. What is important for being a great collaborator? What would you say there's one word or skill, or what is really key?
The very important thing is the trust matters a lot. When you really look at the companies like an app developers, actually, they are really collaborated extremely well with the phone manufacturing companies. So this is a new set of partners actually, because the success of the phone is always with the apps actually, right? So it's very important to really involve them in the first line of interaction all the time, so that your collaboration becomes stronger and stronger. So at the same time, the large company need to really see the younger companies, how they can be successful being partnered with us. Okay, so because that is what is important for startups to really survive, because they wanted to really look at the revenues to come in quicker, right? So it's it should not be the lion and mouse. Actually, the lion is running for food, and then the rabbit is running for life. Actually, that should not be the kind of collaboration. So collaboration need to understand the power of mouse as well as the the capability of the lion.
Thank you, Lokesh.
Hope I answered that.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Anything you'd like to add, Kaimeng and Kurt, before we conclude the one essential word or what thought for being a great co-creator and collaborator around the globe?
First.
Yeah, Kaimeng? Kaimeng? Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, she muted.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in addition to, look at this as a cross-functional, design needs to be cross-discipline thinking and cross-functional, cross-culture and all that. I think one of the things I wanted to add is it needs to be more than a phase thing. So some people look at design as just for maybe the first phase, and then, the iteration and the continuous is even more important. So I think it should be emphasized as a, beyond just one phase. It should be a cross, all the cycles, and it's from beginning to end and beyond. So that's the role of design that I'm seeing, in this new kind of economy, new kind of way of integrating into the business process and all that. So it shouldn't be just one phase.
Yeah, it's good.
I agree. Continuous design and innovation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that your final thought, Kurt?
Yeah, that's it. Continuous design and innovation.
We like that. So we'll keep this spirit going around the world. And I really want to thank Kurt Ward, our guest speaker from Philips, the global design leader, and my collaborators, Lokesh, Venkataswamy from International Innovation Design Leader, as well as Kaimeng for her insights, who's also a specialist in international strategy and design and leadership there. Very quick reminder to everyone before we go. I'm just going to quickly hold on just 1 minute if you can. Just remind you before just of our next session. And there we go. So in terms of the Q&A, so we enjoyed a great Q&A. And we'll keep co-creating solutions. We're looking forward to spreading the word about global innovation readiness, and we'll bring more webinars like this, as well as audits and training and services around vision, dialogue, and space. So please feel free to connect with us via email, via LinkedIn, and you have more info through the book and a test drive. And next Thursday, we're going to welcome, Thursday, June 11th, for our next stop, we'll be welcoming my collaborator, Thomas Arndt, International Product and Innovation Leader, with guest speakers Matt Ferguson and Moti Margalit from Xenova, the Global Innovation Platform. So they're collaborating with thousands of innovators around the world in open innovation, and they're going to talk about how do you really facilitate global virtual teams. And so it should be very insightful. And you have the link there to for registration of the webinar series. Thank you, grand merci to everyone. We are wishing you a great journey and stay safe and look forward to seeing you online soon. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.